Good evening, my dear children of class 7. Today I shall be dealing with a new chapter, a very interesting chapter that deals with adventure. And yes, before we move ahead with this chapter, I would definitely like to ask all of you, how many of you all do love undergoing an adventure trip? Definitely the answer would be yes. Even I would be very excited. So similarly, this story that I shall be dealing with today is also based on such adventure, a very thrilling adventure that a character by the name Gulliver undergoes. So, and this story that I will be dealing, it's titled "A Voyage to Brobdinag," is a story, an adaptation taken from a novel by the name Gulliver's Travel that was written by Jonathan Swift. So what happens in this story is the gist of the story is such. It goes like this, wherein the character Gulliver, he and his crew members, they undergo an adventure, and as they are on their way to some direction towards their destiny, unfortunately they happen to encounter a storm and their ship gets badly battered, and in order to seek shelter, they head their ship towards the closest island by the name Brobdinag, and to their surprise, this island is inhabited by giants. And Gulliver, what happens is Gulliver is taken by a farmer, as a plaything for his daughter, and he gives Gulliver as a doll. Taking him as a doll, he gifts his daughter, who happens to be a 9-year-old child. He gifts Gulliver as a gift to her. So now this is how the story goes. So I shall be reading it. My mistress had a daughter who was 9 years old. So the mistress here is referred to the wife of the farmer who took Gulliver in and gifted Gulliver as a gift to his daughter. So my mistress had a daughter who was 9 years old. She was very dexterous at her needlework and skillful in dressing her dolls. And this 9-year-old daughter of the farmer and his mistress, she was very, very skilled with her needlework. Dexterous here means skillful with her hands. So she was so skilled that she would tailor various different beautiful apparels for her daughter. So her mother and she arranged a doll's cradle for me for the night, and since they were giants, even this young girl of 9 was extremely a huge giant in front of Gulliver, a normal human being. You can well imagine how big these people were. So, and you can also imagine the size of their doll, because the cradle of the doll happened to be a perfect fit as Gulliver's bed. So they had arranged the cradle of the doll as the bed for Gulliver. So the cradle was put into a small drawer of a cabinet, and the drawer was placed upon a hanging shelf for fear of rats. And now when we talk about the size of the rat, you can well imagine, it's beyond imagination, that the rats in their place, the land of the giants, must be a gigantic rat. So because of that, for the safety of Gulliver, who happened to be a tiny being in that island of Brobdinag, his cradle had to be kept at a certain height in order to keep him safe from the rats. This was my bed all the time. I stayed with those people, and slowly, gradually, he stayed with them. He started getting into the habit of their lifestyle, their living ways. And what happened was, as he stayed with those people, though it was made more convenient as I began to learn their language and make my wants known. So initially it was very difficult for Gulliver at Brobdingnag. For the people, the giants of Brobdingnag, they had their own language. It was very, very uncomfortable. It was very difficult. It was a difficult phase, initial phase for Gulliver at Brobdingnag. But eventually, gradually, as he started living with those giants, he started learning their ways of life. He started learning not just their ways of life, but also slowly, gradually started understanding their language. And this was one factor that made it easier for Gulliver to live amongst those giants, as he began to learn their language and make my wants known. And after having learned their language, it becomes definitely easy for anybody to express themselves, express what they feel, express what they want, So this very fact of learning their language made his life out there much more convenient. Convenient means easy. So then let's move ahead. The young girl was very helpful to me. The young girl that we are talking out here is the 9-year-old girl, the daughter of the farmer and his wife. So she made me 7 shirts and other clothes of as fine a material as could be got, which was in fact coarser. Coarser means something which is very rough, which is which is not of a very fine quality. So, but in spite of it, this young girl, she was very helpful. And helpful in what way? She made him 7 sets of shirt. We have already come to know that this girl, the 9-year-old girl, she is very dexterous with her needlework. She was very dexterous. And so because of that, she could very easily tailor 7 shirts for Gulliver, and not just that, some other clothes too, of a fine material as could be got, which was in fact coarser than sackcloth. And she tried to make these apparels for Gulliver with best of the best clothes, which actually for him happened to be something which was very rough. For him it was very rough, but for the giants it happened to be the finest material, which happened to be extremely rough and coarse as the sackcloth. Sackcloth means a cloth material which is made up of sack. So she washed these clothes with her own hand. She was likewise my teacher to teach me their language. When I pointed to anything, she told me the name of it in her own language, so that in few days I was able to call for whatever I wanted. So here we get the information of how he actually learned their language. It was none other than this girl who happened to teach him, who happened to be his tutor, who taught him their language. And not just that, she was so helpful and caring that she not just tailored apparels, shirts, 7 shirts for him and other clothes for him, not only made his life comfortable out there by giving him proper comfortable place to sleep and a safe place to sleep, but at the same time she also used to, as a mother would do, she would also wash clothes for him, so that, and she even taught him their language. And because of that very act of hers, Gulliver, it became very, very easy for him to live amongst the giants. He could ask, how, and he explains us by telling us how he actually learned their language. Whenever he would point at anything, through his gesture, she would, in their language, she would explain what that was, and she would teach him what it was called in their language. So in this manner, within a span of few days, he had already started understanding their language, and learned quite a lot of their language. She was very good natured and not more than 40 feet tall, being short for her age. She was 40 feet. You can imagine, just a 6-footer person also turns out in reality, in our world, a 6-footer person is also extremely tall. But you can well imagine, in fact, it is beyond imagination, a human as tall as 40 feet, and that too a child, and that too surprisingly she happens to be somebody who was short of her, somebody being short for her age. So she was extremely tall. So this person, here what we get to see in this paragraph, we get to see the kind of relationship that was shared by Gulliver and this girl. They had become, as with the passing of days, these two, they developed a very close relationship. They were not just friends. She was not just a friend to her. She was also a kind of a guide, as well as a teacher for him, not just a friend alone. Then what happened is, she gave me the name Gildring, which the family used, and later the whole kingdom. So this was the name that she gave him. In English, this word Gildring, the word means mannequin. Mannequin here is an old English word which is referred to a very short man. Yes, so we never parted while I was there, and I called her my Glomdale Cletch, or little nurse. So this is how they developed a very close relationship. Every day, there was not a single moment that they were never together. They were always seen together. They were always seen enjoying together. They were always seen learning and teaching one another. And gradually, they started developing a very close relationship, and they had even given each other a loving name. So it now began to be known and talked about in the neighborhood that my master had found a strange animal in the fields, about the size of a splachnock. And whom do you think this animal is being referred to? Yes, this animal is being referred to Gulliver, for he was extremely strange. Yes, for the giants. So, about the size of a splachnock, an animal in that country which was about 6 feet long. So in that kingdom, there was this strange creature that looked almost like a human, and that was referred as splachnock. And there was this rumor that went around the kingdom that this farmer had found a strange creature that looked no different from a splachnock that was found in that kingdom. And that person, that creature that he found, that the farmer had found, is Gulliver. Found a strange animal in the field about the size of a splachnock, an animal in the country which was about 6 feet long, but exactly shaped like human being, which it imitated in all its action. Imitated means to copy, to follow what the other is doing. So imitated in its actions, it seemed to speak a little of their it seemed to speak in a little language of its own, and had already learned several words of theirs, had learned several words of theirs, that is the giants. It went erect on its legs and tame and gentle. Tame here means mild and well behaved. Okay, tame and gentle, would come when it was called, do whatever it was bid. Bid means commanded, and had a complexion fairer than a nobleman's daughter of 3 years old. So this was the rumor that went around about Gulliver, about how he looked, about how he spoke not just his language but also little of their language. So this was the rumor that went around, and that spread widely in and around the kingdom of the giants. And it roused a lot of curiosity in the people of that kingdom. So then another farmer, A friend of my master came on a visit to find out the truth of the story. I was immediately produced and placed on a table where I walked as I was commanded. So, as I told you, since the rumor was such that went around Brobdinag, people they naturally felt curious to see this strange creature, that is Gulliver, that we are talking about. And amongst all those curious crowd, one person happened to be another farmer who also happened to be a friend of the farmer who is Gulliver's master. So he came on a visit. He came on a visit, and he wanted to have a look at Gulliver, since he did not believe. He really wanted to see whether what he had heard, whether the rumor that he had heard about this strange creature that looked like Splachna was really true indeed or not. So then immediately, in order to clear his doubt, Gulliver was produced in front of him. He was kept on the table, and there he walked as he was commanded. Then I paid my respect to my master's guest, asked him in his own language how he was, and told him he was welcome, just as my little nurse had instructed. So he was taught some mannerism too. So Gulliver was taught how to speak, how to greet his guest in their way, in their manner. So in that way, whatever he was commanded, he did it. He walked across the table as he was commanded, and not just that, he even greeted this giant farmer's friend, who was inquisitive and curious to see what he looked like and whether it was true or not what rumor he had heard about Gulliver. So, and not just that, he even welcomed him, and he spoke in his language. And then what happened is, this man who was old and dim-sighted means weak-eyed. Yes, his eyesight was pretty weak. So he was old. So old and dim-sighted, put on his spectacles to see me better, at which I could not help laughing very heartily, for his eyes appeared like a full moon shining into a chamber through two windows. So this funny thing happened when this man, this old giant who was weak-sighted, he could not believe, and since Gulliver was so tiny, he could not actually see very clearly. He could not see Gulliver from a distance quite clearly. So what he did, in order to see him clearly, he put on his glasses and he went as close as he could towards Gulliver. And when he did that, Gulliver, the minute he saw this giant with this huge glasses, he burst out laughing, for he felt that his eyes looked no different from the moon, full moon, shining into the chamber of the window, two windows. Then other people laughed too when they discovered the cause of my mirth. Mirth means that which causes laughter. And soon after, the people who were gathered out there, the curious people who were there to see Gulliver, to witness Gulliver, the minute that they too discovered the reason why Gulliver laughed, they too gave a hearty laugh. And who felt bad? Definitely this friend of his master. He felt extremely embarrassed. He felt humiliated. So other people laughed too when they discovered the cause of my mirth. But the old man was angry. He was a miser. Miser means somebody who hoards money instead of spending it, And to my misfortune means bad luck, he advised my master to display me on market day in the next town. So as a mark of revenge for having been humiliated in front of everyone by Gulliver, he advises his friend, that is the master of Gulliver, to take him to the town and to be displayed in the market in the next town. Then When Glomdale heard of this plan, now who is this Glomdale? Yes, Glomdale is the daughter of the farmer, the 9-year-old daughter of the farmer, a very close friend, a guardian of Gulliver. Yes, when Glomdale heard of this plan, she laid me on her chest and began to cry. She felt extremely shattered, and she felt extremely sad, hurt. She felt worried that harm would be done to me by some crude people. Crude means rough, raw, unrefined people who might squeeze me to death. Why? Because definitely Gulliver was just a teeny meeny person in front of those Gullivers, and Glomdale feared that if he would be taken to the town to be displayed at the market and the next town, definitely there might be an accident wherein he might be squeezed to death. So this was the fear fear and worry that caused tension in this girl, the 9-year-old girl named Glomdale, and that completely saddened her. So she felt it was an indignity to me, so it was a kind of a humiliation to me to be exposed for money as public spectacle to the people. So here she felt that this it was quite unjust, and it was not good. It was not a good idea for her father to take Gulliver to the next town where his life might be put into danger for some money in order to earn money. So she felt that it was quite humiliating for Gulliver. And then what happened is, following the advice of his friend, my master carried me in a box to the next market day to the neighboring town, and took along with him his little daughter, my nurse, on the pillion behind him. Pillion is like you have seen in the two-wheelers where there is this passenger seat at the back where the passenger can sit. So that space is the pillion. So pillion behind him, the box was closed on every side with a little door for me to go in and out, and a few holes to let in air. So the next day it was already decided by the farmer that he would definitely move or go to the neighboring town in order to display him at the marketplace and earn some money, because after all, people were really curious and inquisitive to know and learn about Gulliver, and more than that, they wanted to see him. They wanted to see how he really looked like. So definitely the farmer felt that it was a great opportunity to earn quick money. So he takes him the following day, and he puts him in a small box, and with him he also takes his daughter as their company. So then he was put in a box closed on every side with a little door for me to go in and out, and a few holes to let in air. So she was put in a small box which had a small door for him to move in and out, and there were small holes so that he could breathe. So the girl had been thoughtful enough to put her doll's quilt into it for me to lie on. However, I was terribly shaken by the end of the journey, for the horse went about 40 feet at every step and trotted so high. Trotted means not to walk, but it's between walking and running. So you can so just imagine, a 9-year-old girl was 40 feet. Just imagine the size of the horse. And when it galloped, when it just trotted, not even was it racing, it trotted. As it trotted, every step it took further, it furthered, the horse furthered. It was quite a huge task and a difficult task for Gulliver to actually remain, to have a sound travel. For what happened was, this horse went about 40 feet at every step and trotted so high that the movement was equal to the rising and the falling of a great storm. So the journey was extremely tiring, and it was a difficult one for poor Gulliver. So now what we see is that he's been taken to the town to be displayed by the market, by the master, that is the farmer, who's the father of his friend, 9-year-old girl. And so for today I shall be dealing with this chapter till here. For this chapter as quite long, and the other half of this chapter I shall be dealing in the next video. So I hope you all enjoyed this adventurous story, and stay tuned. We shall be moving ahead with more adventurous scene of this story in the next video. Till then, take care.